Hey, 82.1. Hello, everybody. All right, before we get going, one correction. You, many times, at least half a dozen times, you've talked about how Hillary Clinton came out in favor of open borders.
Yes.
I just happened to run across the context for that quote. She wasn't talking about people. She was talking about energy. She wasn't talking about immigration. She just wanted open borders. She wanted a free market for American energy, like gas, oil, all that stuff. And the douchebags over at Fox News just cut the clip in half so you didn't hear the part where that put it in the right context.
Well, thank God for the wise and conscientious caretakers of truth that the Fox News people are in doing that, because just this week I heard two speeches, one from Chuck Schumer and one from Nancy Pelosi, the two most powerful people in the Democratic Party, saying that they are going to fight tooth and nail to prevent Trump from getting a wall. So you explain to me why the Democrats are fighting tooth and nail to avoid getting a wall, and but they're not for open borders.
I would guess that they're fighting against the wall to get some concessions in negotiating with Trump.
Exactly. Now I have a response for that you keep slipping out of. This is the thing I don't understand. It's sort of like saying, I want you to stop raping my wife, but I want some concessions in return. In other words, if they really do want a wall, then why don't they just say, okay, here's something we both agree on, let's build a wall.
I just realized what the wall is like.
Wait. Before you respond, before you go off on a tangent, if you want something, then you don't ask your opponent for concessions to get that thing that you want. You would just say, okay, I guess we both want a wall. I'm going back to this. Why do you want, it's like if somebody says, I don't want you to rape my wife, so here's the deal that I'll make with you. I'll have you rape my wife if you don't do something else. Why is there a concession involved?
Because probably the wall is a little bit, at least a little bit bullshit. It's like those penis pills they used to sell late at night on TV that purported to make your ding dong bigger. If there was really a serious...
By the way, I've been taking those for about 5 years.
Yeah, well, once you sign up for them, you can't get off the list. They just keep sending them to you month after month.
Yeah.
But if really putting up a wall was the solution to all of America's immigration problems, or most of them, then both sides would be clamoring for a wall. But the wall is a little bit bullshit. Where it won't necessarily, we already have 650 miles of wall out of a 2,000 mile border. It's not entirely clear that the wall would be the curative solution. Anyway.
Okay, I get to respond to that.
Okay,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I told you last week that the 650 miles that we have are so porous and badly built that people just bring ladders, and they just find the ladders every morning because people can climb over it. So those 650 miles are completely useless. What the Israelis have on the Palestinian border has cut terrorism down to practically zero from people crossing over. And it's incredibly effective. Wherever they built the wall, it immediately cut terrorism down. And that's what we want here. We want a high-tech, modern wall. And the reason the Democrats don't want it is because they want illegal aliens to come over. Not because it wouldn't be effective enough.
Well,
their concern is that it would be too effective.
Well, yeah, we need more illegal aliens because the number of undocumented immigrants has now dropped to a 20-year or 30-year low. According to Pew, 10.7 million,
Yeah.
down from 12 million.
And according to the best estimates last year, illegal aliens crossing the border is the highest it's been ever. And I can show you that statistic too.
Yeah, I would disagree with that.
I can show it to you right now.
Who's it from?
We can look it up if you want.
Now, people crossing over successfully, or people just getting caught and getting sent back?
I didn't go that far into it.
Well,
I know that there is illegal immigration is surging. Okay?
Yeah, but if
it's the worst it's ever been.
If they're not getting in, then
well, no, I mean they're getting in. That's why they're illegal aliens. So yeah, illegal aliens are alien incursions into the U.S. is the highest it's ever been.
You're going to at some point you're going to have to, when we break, you can look it up, because according to Pew, the number of total undocumented immigrants in the U.S.
is down to 10.7. But it doesn't matter. We are not now discussing how many there are. We do that every week. Now we're talking about whether a border wall is effective against illegal immigration. And nothing apparently has worked.
Well,
and your side is Schumer and Pelosi have now said they will shut down the government if there's a wall involved in the negotiations. They will not allow, they will shut down the government. That's how much they don't want a wall.
That seems like a bargaining position.
No, but you can say it seems like a bargaining position.
You just said.
But you're just imagining that. No,
well,
I'm willing to take them at their word, Rick. If the two top Democrats, the head of the Senate, the head of the House, both say they will fight tooth and nail, they will shut the government down. They say a wall is immoral. They're both on tape this week. So they're against a wall.
All right, that's one more thing to check when we break.
Well, what do you... Okay, fine.
Okay. All right. Oh, so anyway, last week you said liberals hate America.
Oh, wait.
I'm
not... Just one last little point I just wanted to make. It turns out this week there was also, besides this amazing research that you claim Pew has come up with, there's actually another statistic has come out. It turns out that the average illegal immigrant, the average illegal alien that is able to infect our society costs the taxpayer a total of $70,000 for each one during the time that they're in the U.S. And it turns out that even if there are 10 million, only 10 million, let's say there's only 10 million of them. How much is that? What's 10 million times 70,000? Do you know?
All right, so it's 10 to the 5th times 10 to the 7th. That's, I don't know, 700 billion?
Yeah. So $700 billion is what illegal aliens are costing at a minimum to the United States.
Except
$700 billion. That's
some conservative source that's giving you that, because...
Well, it's the Institute for Immigration.
Which is a conservative organization.
Well, look, Rick...
Because you can find other organizations who say that maybe that most people, when they come to the U.S., whether they're legal immigrants or undocumented immigrants, they do take some kind of social assistance. But then within a year or two, they are actually, via taxes, actually contributing to the GDP and not sucking the juice out of America.
Right, more Democrat propaganda.
Yeah, but your shit is conservative propaganda with that 70,000.
I can tell you why. They've explained it. Now try to use logic on this. When the illegal alien comes over the border, they say, these illegal aliens are not working their way into mid-management positions and faculty positions. They're taking up all the low-wage jobs. That's what they do. Illegal aliens become low-wage workers in the United States. And it turns out, by every study, doesn't matter who, liberal, Democrat,
except the only one you can cite is from a conservative journal.
Just let me finish my point, Rick. I'm very patient with you. It turns out all parties agree, liberal, conservative, that when you have a plethora of low-wage workers in an area, the overall tax base goes down because they pay vastly less taxes than the middle class. All right? So what happens is the low-wage workers end up sucking the services out of the area. So when California says we really feel bad because we're losing the middle class, the reason is the middle and upper classes are the tax base. Those are the people that pay the taxes. So when the illegal aliens come in, they become the low income, the low wage people.
And they make California the hell it is now.
And what
even though it's the fifth largest economy in the world, if
it's
it was
the seventh. It's the seventh,
it's the
and it used to be the fifth. Since you guys let in millions of illegal aliens, it went from the fifth to the seventh.
Let's back up to the fifth.
Okay, let me finish my point, because you're not addressing it. You're just arguing.
Well,
when these low-wage people come in, they don't provide enough taxes to pay for themselves, and they suck more social services than the middle and upper classes. They do not pay for themselves. They cost the United States taxpayer.
To your Center for Immigration Studies, but other studies say not.
Show me those studies, Rick.
When we break, we're going to do all this shit. We're going to.
No, you're not going to remember. Turn off the camera and find me a study, because you won't remember. We will have moved on.
All right, here we go. And I'll say stuff. All right, 82.2. I think Lance and we just spent way too much time reading up on the costs and benefits of immigrants, and we're in agreement that it's complicated. One thing the sources we read seem to agree on is that immigrants pay more in taxes to the federal taxes, to the national government, than they take out of the national government, especially since they're undocumented and they're not using Social Security and Medicare. On the other hand, they use more in state and local services than they pay for through taxes. So it's a net gain for the feds and a net loss for the states.
Well, I just want to reiterate, because we're not... I want to reiterate that the study that I read was written by the National Academy of Sciences, and their analysis was that it leads to the U.S. government having to spend $70,000 for each illegal immigrant over their lifetime.
Compared to, according to this study, 10 grand to deport them.
Yeah, can you turn this way?
Yep.
So, I mean, the point is, but again, it sort of goes back to this basic question that I have with you, and that is, why is it that you're so supportive of illegal immigration? I don't really know what you get out of it. What is it? Why is it good for America? Because
immigration in general.
I'm not talking about immigration in general at all, period.
Well, it's not like I'm running around saying, come on, we got to get more undocumented immigrants in. Mostly what I'm saying is it's not robots are a bigger threat to everything.
But that's not a logical argument.
Well, no, but the deal are also the 10,000 or 11 grand to deport somebody now. When you look at the future cost of money, may actually be on a par with. Well, they said 65,000 lifetime.
They said 65,000, and they said 760 billion for the lifetime of the. Even at the low estimate of 11 million illegal aliens.
That's across 40 years, 50 years.
Yeah, I know, but it's a hell of a lot of money. I mean, to give you some idea, our entire defense budget is only 700 billion. So we could have 2 American armed forces for the price of illegal aliens to pick our fruit. I just don't get it.
No,
I don't
now
see
you're
the
mixing.
value.
That's an annual budget of $700 billion.
Yes.
Versus a net cost, if you believe the report, of $700 billion across the entire lifespan.
I know, but I don't know why that is so appealing to you. Why do you want to spend that? Why is that so good for you? Why do you want it? Why do you want it? Why don't you say, damn, that's a bad thing. Let's get rid of these people.
Well, so it costs 10 or 11 grand to deport somebody.
Yes.
In current dollars, you can invest $11,000 in an annuity, and over the next 40 years, get back 70 grand because the future cost of money is less because of math.
Yeah, but they're not investing the money in annuities. They're supposed to spend it protecting our borders. So here's the thing. We've had this argument now for almost a month. And I don't really know why it is that I say things like, let's build a wall. And then you say, well, if we're going to have a wall, the Republicans are going to have to give something in return. And then I say something like, well, illegals cost $70,000 apiece during their lifetime. And you say things like, well, that's not really that bad. So I'm left with the belief.
The Congressional Budget Office in their study, which is a study that's 10 years old now and probably is based on different assumptions, said that immigrants, undocumented, return more to the economy than they cost the economy.
Right, but as I say, that's a 10-year-old study. That was in 2007, and the most recent study that we're citing now from the National Academy of Sciences was released in October, I don't know the month, but in 2017. But let me finish my point. Every time I try to say that illegal immigrants are a problem, all you ever say is, no, they're really not. So I just don't. So why do you keep doing that? Why is it that you have this sort of automatic defense when all I'm trying to do is to get you to go along with the Republicans and try to deport them and stop any new ones coming over? Why is it that? What is it about them that you find so attractive? Why do you want them here?
No, I'm okay with till right when you get to the framing devices. What do I find so attractive about it?
Yeah, what is it?
All right, no, the deal, that's not...
Why do you fight me on this? Why don't you just agree?
Well, because I don't think... Well, because a lot of it's demagoguing. Like if you had to make a list of the top 10 things that threaten America continuing to be America for over the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years, undocumented immigrants don't make it into my top 5. Don't ask me what my top 5 is, because one of them is frickin' how to deal with AI and tech. And
well, that doesn't make it into my top 100.
All right, so I think immigrants are, I mean, there's no question that immigrants have been demagogued. That issue is subject to demagoguery.
But that's irrelevant. Why are you against building a wall, and why are you against deporting them?
So
why do you want to abolish ICE? You keep saying these things.
You keep putting opinions and words in my mouth that I don't say. Now, we've got a wall for a third of the length of the border. You're saying it's an ineffective wall.
It's completely ineffective. Everyone agrees. The Border Patrol says it's ineffective.
You say it's completely ineffective, but it's probably not 100% ineffective.
No, actually, I mean, I've talked with Democrats about this that live near the border. And they say that every morning they see the ladders that are exactly 2 feet taller than the wall, all spread out in front of the wall, in front of the. It's not even a wall; it's a fence.
Here's the deal. Let me say what I actually think.
Yeah, what is it? Okay.
So
please.
we've got 2,000 miles of border.
Okay.
Between the U.S. and Mexico. You could take, I don't know, numbers for what needs to be done, or at least to start work on it, range from $1 billion or $2 billion to a total cost of like $25 billion. I'm okay with, I personally, I'm not in, the Senate or in the House. I have no, with taking a few billion and putting it along for a wall where it would do the most good. Because there are parts...
Then fine. Then why don't you vote Republican? Because the Democrats are not for doing that.
Well, because voting Republican means that the wall is your number one... for a lot of Republicans, or at least for the Trump Republicans, the wall is this big... It's the one big solution deal that will make everything better. And I think that's too simplistic. And also, all right, so ICE. Obviously, we need border security.
But Alexandria Ocasio, your hero, it wants to abolish ICE. And you said you'd vote for her for president.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
I said it.
If she ran against an average Republican and got the Democrat nomination, you'd vote for her, and she wants to abolish ICE.
Does she have subpoena power over me?
Over what? I don't know.
She said she would subpoena Donald Trump Jr.
I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works. I know she's great on Twitter. She's a good tweeter. But
didn't she say she was gonna? Donald Trump Jr. better be careful what he says.
Well, she's much better at Twitter than frickin' Donald Trump Jr. But that's not really of consequence.
What did she say?
I don't know. I don't remember what she said to Donald Trump Jr. except that she's smart and Donald Trump Jr., at least at Twitter, is not so smart.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, that's inconsequential. The deal is, you hear various, I'm not fully informed about ICE. If ICE is a bunch of yahoos and a-holes, which they probably aren't, but every frickin', most police organizations in the U.S. could use additional training. But you know what? That applies to teachers, that applies to doctors, nurses, everybody could use more training. I mean, there have been studies on doctors that if you look at mortality and morbidity reports, and based on those reports, you find that the top 10 things that doctors do that kill patients, and then you give the doctors additional training to not do that stuff. And one of those things is just wash your hands more. Even 150 years after we found out that germs kill people, doctors still don't wash their hands enough. So ICE could use more training. Cops could use more training. Everybody could use more training. So does that mean ICE needs to be abolished? Probably not, but every profession...
Well, then you don't agree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Okay, fine.
So none of your leaders agree with you.
Well,
Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer don't want to build a wall. You do. Cortez wants to abolish ICE.
No, hold on.
So you're actually a Republican.
No, I'm okay with...
On the issue of immigration, you agree with me.
No, I'm okay with souping up some kind of border fencing deal as part of an overall approach.
But what I'm saying is, again, that's the same argument that I was mentioning earlier. It's sort of like, if you don't want your sister raped, then it's not part of a deal. You just don't want your sister raped. This is the thing I don't understand. Why does it have to be part of a deal? You see, that's what the Democrats do. They say, well, we're for a border wall as part of a deal.
Yeah.
Well, no, either they want a border wall or they don't. Why are they negotiating for something they want? Do you understand the logic?
Yeah, because there are other things related to immigration that are at least as important as a border wall.
Well, why don't we just agree that we want a border wall? Why don't we just vote that in, Rick?
Because then you don't have any leverage to address some of the other
But
stuff.
then you
like
don't get your
DACA.
border wall that you said you wanted.
Because
You don't use leverage to avoid getting something you want. How many ways do I have to explain this to you?
Yeah,
Rick,
actually,
if
that's
you
what
really,
negotiation
if you really want a border wall, you don't negotiate over it. You go to your buddy and you say, hey, you want a border wall? I want a border wall. Let's have it. You don't negotiate for something you want if the other person wants it too. You don't use it as a bargaining chip.
yeah, actually, you do.
They say,
That's how negotiation works.
You know what? It's like saying, I don't want my sister to be raped, but I'll let you. But you know what? I'll use that as a bargaining chip. Maybe I will let you rape my sister. Do you understand the logic? If they want a border wall, why are they negotiating it and using it as a bargaining chip?
How many years have you been in couples counseling? I've been in couples counseling for 25 years.
Would it be all right if I saw a psychiatrist after doing this show with you?
Sure. Or we should go to couples counseling. We should get some, but and it's not because my wife and I are fighting every single minute, and we only go about once a month.
You know what? You know what? I feel so much empathy for your wife.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot
You're
of people
lucky
do.
I'm not the counselor.
Yeah. But the deal is that, I mean, couples counseling is learning how to negotiate, or negotiating in a refereed environment.
But listen, if both of you want to have sex 3 times a day, then you don't use that as a bargaining chip. You say, listen, we both want to have sex 3 times a day. So you don't say, I'll tell you what, if you don't give me what I want, I won't have sex with you. Because you really do want to have sex.
All right, so
the Democrats are saying, we won't give you a border wall unless you give us something else. Do you see what I'm saying?
let's look at it this way, where if you had a couple, a hypothetical couple, and if each member of the couple listed their priorities in a relationship, and one half of the couple put sex in the number 1 position, and the other part of the half of the couple put it in the number 4 position, then that discrepancy is subject to gives people leverage and the tools to negotiate with. If one person wants, both people can want sex, but if one person wants sex more, then you negotiate.
Okay,
if both people want a wall, but one person wants a wall more than the other person, then you negotiate.
But what if you both end up not having sex because you negotiated and you really did want to have sex? So what's happening is the Democrats say, aha, so they want a wall, eh? Well, we want a wall too, but we're going to negotiate, and in the end, there's no wall.
But,
by the way, your premise is wrong because Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer both announced that they think a wall is immoral.
Well,
They just said, we think a wall is immoral.
Well, I'll tell you what's going on, and I said it last week. Neither side wants a solution because each side thinks that they can get more electoral leverage. They can piss off and activate their base more through blaming the other side than they could if an actual solution was reached. So that's the equivalent. That's the couples counseling equivalent of not reaching a solution because each person wants to be able to go to his or her friends and say, my spouse is such an asshole. And that's what's going on.
No. What's really going on is this. You see, you have a theory about what's going on.
Yeah, okay.
You say the Republicans don't want to solve the problem. But the Democrats are actually getting more votes. They really don't want to solve the problem. Not so they can talk to their base, but so that they can get more votes. Because every time an illegal alien spits out a baby, that's a Democrat. And that's how they took over the state of California.
All right, that's your theory.
No, it's not a theory. It's reality. We have a birthright citizenship law that gives you more Democrats every time they thwart the Republicans at border control. So you may have a theory about what they may or may imagine that they want, or what might be what's behind it.
We each have a motherfucking theory.
No, it's not a theory. When 90% of the kids of illegal aliens vote Democrat, and 80% of all immigrants from every country vote Democrat, even legal immigrants. So more immigrants means more Democrats. That's not my imagination. That's not a theory. That's what's really happening. So the Democrats don't want border control.
Nah.
Change the subject, please.
Okay, no, I've got a subject. Because last week you said, as a Democrat, I hate America.
Yes.
And I disagree.
You do.
And I said I love America, except maybe for the random shootings.
Now, what did you mean by that random shootings thing?
That we live in a country where there are more guns than people, and it's not a huge risk, but it's a bigger risk in America than almost any other country that you'll get shot. And I know, I said it's not a huge risk because we've got 330 million people, and 35,000 people get shot every year? Is it that? Maybe 50,000? Anyway, that's only, it's not even, 1 in 10,000. But so it's not like we're all getting shit. But anyway, I said, yeah, that's part of America I don't like. This past week, I got to help clean up after a shooting.
Okay.
So I'm at the YMCA.
Did Carol finally lose her temper?
No, I'm at the gym. I'm at the Y, and this guy runs in, and he's pretty agitated. He's very upset. It turns out he's upset because he's just been shot 3 times.
Okay.
And he's dripping blood all over the place, and he doesn't know whether he wants to stay in the Y or run away, and we kind of corral him because he seems pretty hyper, as you would be if you'd just been shot 3 times. And we get him to sit down, then we get him to lay down, and he ties a tourniquet, and he helped.
He tied himself a tourniquet?
He pulled off his shirt, and he tourniqueted off his leg, and other people, we found the people at the Y found some old T-shirts, and anyway, they got him all tied off. And it turned out his girlfriend, they locked down the building out front. It turns out his girlfriend had been shot, and she was in the car, which had crashed into the sign in front of the Y. And it turns out that this was some kind of car-to-car, road ragey type of altercation that started at Taco Bell, at the North Hollywood Taco Bell. And just in the last few minutes, I'm thinking about what is the lesson in this?
Okay.
Besides, don't cut people off in the drive-through lane at Taco Bell, even though, have you ever had a Doritos Locos taco where the shell is made out of Doritos material?
No.
It's good. It's really good. A Doritos taco it's great. But even so, no matter how much you want Taco Bell food, you don't cut people off. But the lesson, besides that, what does that have to do with gun policy?
Okay.
And I would offer this argument that people say, that the standard argument is when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns.
Okay.
And then other people say, yeah, but look at Australia. They made it much tougher to get guns, especially guns that are able to spit out a bunch of bullets in a short amount of time. Whatever you want to call them, assault rifles or there's all of these arguments about nomenclature. But I would argue this, that if you did make it harder to get guns or certain types of guns, Well, people say, well, yeah, but criminals, they're criminals. They'll get guns anyway. But really, with the types of people who are so dumb that they will get in a gunfight because somebody cut somebody else off at Taco Bell, would those knuckleheads really be able to get super dangerous guns so easily if guns were harder to get? I mean, big-time criminals, the kinds you see in movies, where they have a safe cracker and they've got a driver and, or they're in the mob or something. Those people will always be able to get guns. But knuckleheads who hose down a car because somebody got in the taco line in front of them, would those idiots be able to get a gun if getting guns was more difficult?
Rick, about 20 minutes ago, I stopped paying attention to what you were saying.
Yeah, but that's the show. You should.
I agree with you. Let's go on to another topic.
Okay, all right. What are we doing now?
Well, Trump has been implicated by the Mueller thing. Looks like he's going to be going to jail. What do you think?
Lance, you go first, because I've got a new debate technique.
Repeat what I said, though, because they can't really hear it.
Okay, all right. So our director just said, Trump's been implicated in Mueller's latest memos, and he's going to jail. That's what the director said.
He might be going to. Okay.
Yeah, for you to react to.
But well, you've got the new technique of debating. I want to hear it. Give it to
No,
me.
you have to say something first.
Oh,
Wait,
okay.
Can you turn the table around this way?
The hand? This way?
No, the other way.
This way?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
All right. So I don't see that he has any problem at all. I don't. Can you be specific as to what? I need to know which you're talking about. What accusation? What charge?
Let's see. So, illegal campaign or violation of campaign finance laws.
Yeah, that's not campaign finance laws. We went over this about 8 months ago.
Well, no, say what you think.
All right, I'll say what I think. Okay. In order to violate campaign finance laws, there are three factors that have to be taken into account. Now, you talked for a good solid hour about the gun violence you experienced, so let me finish my point before you interrupt me. One, the president, according to the Judicial Department, the Office of the Justice Department, a sitting president can't be indicted for breaking the law.
Everything's cool.
Okay.
Can't be indicted.
Yeah. Okay. Because
everything's fine.
The founding fathers put that in because if it was possible, then people would be suing the president every 5 minutes if they didn't like something about him. He'd never be out of the attention of the authorities. They would constantly use it as a threat, which is what's happening right now. The second thing is that to be a campaign finance violation, you have to know that you're deliberately violating the campaign finance laws. And the reason they have that is because the campaign finance laws are complicated, and you have to go out of your way to know if you didn't know you were doing it, it would be very easy.
So silly mistake,
yeah, it would be considered a silly mistake. All right. The third point that I have is that in order to violate a campaign finance law, they have to be able to prove that what you were doing was done specifically for your campaign. So I'll give an example. If you buy a new suit,
no, you just use the standard example.
Would you please let me talk, Rick? Is this the new
right.
debating tactic, just being rude?
No.
All right, now listen to me. If you buy a new suit, an argument could be made, hey, wait a minute, you bought that suit because it's going to make you look better in the debate. Therefore, you violated campaign finance law by not reporting it. Aha! The problem is the campaign finance laws say that anything you could have done for another reason can't be included, because then you couldn't buy yourself a new suit. So, for example, one thing that you could violate it by would be to pay for advertising on TV, vote for Ralph. Okay? Now, if you don't report that, then you violated the law. But if you buy yourself a new suit or get a haircut, you have not violated the law. So the argument is that if a woman is claiming that you had an affair with her, you are within your rights to pay her off with your own money, which is what he did, to say, listen, just shut up. I don't want you ruining my marriage. And an argument could be made that it was about your marriage. Therefore, it had nothing to do with the campaign. So campaign finance laws are too complicated to be used to bring down this president.
You're right. Everything's fine. He's in no trouble at all.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, so that was going to be my technique, to sarcastically agree with you, but I don't think it's going to work. But I do agree with you that the 3 points you make are sufficient to get him off the hook for that aspect of it. Hold on, there's another thing where some money was run through the Trump organization in a way that is very apparently money laundering, because they ran it through 4 or 5 shell organizations and they split it up into 12 payments, all of which indicates that they were explicitly trying to hide what they were doing, which turns that part of it from an innocent mistake into a non-innocent thing. When you launder money this hard, then it's not innocent.
Well,
hold on. Let me just go ahead and deflate that thing, because with what Mueller has revealed so far, they've tied it to the Trump Corporation, but they haven't tied that part of it to Trump himself. So we don't know if they can hang Trump on that, because he's not his corporation. And they could argue, well, no, this was a corporate decision that he was not aware of.
Thank you. But there's also another issue, and that is the guy that this all hinges on is Michael Cohen. And apparently, he was leaned on by Mueller, and he's no longer a credible witness because he's changed his testimony. He said he's changed what he said 6 months ago, and in other words, he changed dates. He changed whether he said this happened or not. And the argument is that Mueller may have leaned on him. There's already one fellow, I forget, Roger Stone, but another guy that works with associated with Roger Stone, says that Mueller has actually leaned on him to get him to lie. So the problem is that the witness that you have for this thing is no longer credible.
Well, you saw the memos, right, that came out, that especially that first one that was like 85% redacted. It was just black lines all the way across.
Yeah, I saw that.
All right, so people argue this against that. Now, I could, I've already abandoned my new technique of sarcastically agreeing with you. Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, Cohen's not a credible witness. Trump is off the hook.
Let me just briefly respond to that. I just want to tell, this show is partly educational. I used to argue with a lawyer, and whenever in court or in a serious situation you do what Rick did, you just say, yeah, you're right, and sarcastically, the lawyer will turn that into something for he'll just say, oh, so you agree with me. You see, Judge? He agrees with me. Lawyers don't believe in sarcasm. See, they use that against you. So never sarcastically agree with someone, because the lawyer will use that.
Yeah.
And in a transcript, people can't tell it's sarcastic.
That's true.
So never do that. They teach them that in law school.
Well, what about, I've been deposed a couple times.
Okay.
And during one deposition, at least in retrospect, I just wanted to call the opposing side's lawyer like cocksucker like a bunch of times. That probably doesn't work I did not do that, but how does that go?
I don't think that insulting your opponent is necessarily bad. Especially, what I found out is that when the secret police in Germany, in East Germany, was interrogating people, East German citizens, they actually had a rule, and that was the people that were actually guilty were very cooperative. But the people that hadn't done anything wrong and were being unjustly interrogated very often became angry because they had a sense of outrage. And when you lash back at your interrogator, the interrogators in East Germany would say, this person probably didn't do anything.
We still screwed him over, probably.
Maybe.
All right, so in response to your Michael Cohen being an unreliable witness.
Yeah, he's changed his
All right,
testimony.
so the deal is, all right, so
here's
the argument against that, which is two things. One is Mueller's experience has been in prosecuting RICO cases, among other things, organized crime cases.
Right.
And in those cases, everybody's a lying scumbag. So he's probably figured out ways to work around. I mean, frickin' Sammy the Bull Gravano, who testified, who put Gotti away. Mm-hmm. Sammy the Bull killed 19 guys.
Okay.
That's not a good guy.
Right.
So they learned, the people who prosecute RICO cases learn how to work with not the people who aren't the best people. Part two of that is that people, even though Mueller, everything's been redacted, so people don't know. Nobody knows what Mueller has, but people are guessing that in instances where you've got unreliable witnesses, that Mueller has all sorts of electronic and paper, and he's got a bunch of records that corroborate the version that Mueller is using to.
Okay, that's wishful thinking. May I respond, please?
Yeah.
Okay, I was giving this a lot of thought because I knew we'd have this discussion. And I just want to, again, like I did in immigration, I want to cut to the chase with you. Mm-hmm. It's obvious that Trump hasn't really done anything that rises to the level.
Oh yeah, everything's cool. Now you say.
Okay, I mean, nobody in the United States would be surprised if he paid off a woman he had an affair with. And the fact is that pretty much every president we've had, including Johnson, Kennedy, maybe not Carter and George Bush Jr., but Roosevelt had affairs. They've almost all had affairs, okay?
No, about half. If you go through it, it's runs about half.
Fine. But my point is this. And now, let me get this point across, because it really bothered me. I thought about it the whole week. What exactly do you want? In other words, now don't answer the question. My thought is, do you want, this is rhetorical, do you want justice, which is for Trump to be treated fairly, for possibly paying off a woman he may have had an affair with? Or are you just looking around for any way that you can to impeach him? And I mean, don't answer the question. Because my point is, I could indulge this if your real concern, your genuine concern, was that he was giving secrets about our nuclear defense to the Russians and was planning to destroy America in cooperation with Putin. Or he'd actually murdered somebody. Or he was actually a spy for China. And I said, God, Rick's right. we've got to do what we can to get this man out of office. But given the fact that he hasn't really done anything that warrants it, what do you really want? I really want to know. Do you want him to be driven from office because he may have paid off a woman that he had an affair with?
No.
What do you want? What do you want?
All right. So the gripes, the main gripe, and it's easy to forget it in the fog of all the crazy crap that comes out every day, is that Russia deployed a bunch of, I'm just reading a book called Cyber War that details, we all know all the stuff that Russia did during the election to kind of nudge the electorate towards Trump.
No. What they had was they had a dozen guys that were sitting in a room in Moscow or wherever in Russia, and they were
Petersburg.
Okay, and they were taking out weird ads and making comments on social media that was designed to get us angry with one another, which is how they got us to lose the Vietnam War. I mean, they're very good at sowing dissent.
It's estimated that more than 120 million Americans were exposed unwittingly to Russian propaganda.
Okay, but what does this have to do with Trump? He didn't do anything about it. It wasn't his fault. This happened during the Obama administration.
Trump may have...
What if he benefited from it? Even if he did, what are you going to do? Just overturn the election?
No.
Just say, you know what?
No.
Now we get to start over. Hillary's president.
But Trump may have knowingly...
But you have virtually zero evidence of that. Even with these big revelations, you don't have any evidence of that.
Can I just say something real quick? Why that happened during the Obama administration? So why didn't Obama do anything about it? That was in Trump's job.
All right. Why didn't Obama? Okay, Obama tried. Obama didn't try hard enough.
He said early on, toward the end, that there was nothing going on, right? Because
no, he did not.
I heard the speech, and he said to imagine that the Russians, our electoral system is so diverse and so complex that the Russians, it is laughable that they could ever have affected our election. And that was before Hillary lost.
Well, then he was wrong.
And then when somebody finally said, well, aren't they interfering? And he said, I told Putin to knock it off. Mm-hmm. That's it. No, so he didn't do anything. And this occurred.
He didn't do enough.
Well, he didn't do anything. What did he do?
He went to the Senate and said, here's the evidence backed up by all our intelligence gathering organizations.
Okay.
CIA, NSA, FBI, that shows that the Russians are definitely meddling in the election.
And you know
on the side of Trump. And Mitch McConnell says, and I want a bipartisan announcement. This is what's going on. Mitch McConnell said, no, if you announce this, I will say that you are using partisan leverage.
Well, there's also articles, and again, just both your opinions on this, that evidently CIA did come and say that there was some interference, and Susan Rice told them to stand down.
That's true. Thank you.
All right. So, I mean
making my point.
How do you justify that with blaming all of it, blaming it on Trump? In terms of
well, there's plenty of blame to go around.
No, there isn't. Trump didn't do anything. You have no evidence for that.
But it's reasonable to think that more evidence will come out.
Yeah, it's reasonable to think that more evidence will come out that you beat your wife. I'm sorry.
Right,
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it, Rick.
Okay, all right. Neither am I. I agree. Everything's cool.
So one last thing is just to pose it to both of you all. You had mentioned, Rick, that that Mueller is an expert in terms of working with thugs and witnesses. And in those cases that Mueller, there was already a crime that had been committed. There was evidence that, in this case, there's no evidence, or there hasn't been to support that Trump actually interfered or colluded with the Russians. So how do you justify Mueller using those tactics that he did when he was working in the private sector, right? In this situation where there really hasn't been a crime that's been committed.
So nobody has ever suggested
collusion. No, because this is about that Trump colluded. They said that Trump colluded with the Russians, but there hasn't really been any evidence to suggest that Trump is. There wasn't any evidence, tangible, hardcore evidence that Trump actually colluded with the Russians. So basically, would you agree or disagree that Trump had a target on his back? And is that the way it's supposed to be done? Would you want that done with the next Democratic president, where it's just speculation that he committed? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I would want it done.
Okay.
And the stuff that's come out makes me think that there's a non-zero chance that there's more evidence that, at the very least, the Russians were trying to embroil Trump in their machinations, however you say the fucking word, and that Trump was embroiled. That Trump said he was done working on the Trump Tower Moscow project in January of 2016. Now, with these various memos that have come out,
they're not memos. He just changed his testimony.
So everything's cool.
Cohn changed his testimony. First he said it was January, then he said no, it was July or June. In other words, after being pressured by Mueller to try to finger the president. But wait, I need to go back to one point. There has now been a memo released that Jim Comey, the head of the FBI, who recommended investigating Trump, knew that the dossier was unverified. There is a memo now that he said that he said, I know that this dossier is not verified, but I want to investigate Trump anyway for Russia collusion. And the point is, that's in the United States, you don't point at a guy that you hate and because he's your political opponent, and then just say, I'm going to investigate him without evidence of a crime. Do you understand that that's the basis?
We've had this argument a bunch of times.
But you still don't understand it. You can't, unless there is a body, you can't investigate someone for murder.
No, that's true. I was going to use that example. This isn't a case where you've got somebody wearing cement overshoes that's been fished out of the East River.
Yep, and this is not a case where you have any evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. You can't accuse someone of that and then launch a $32 million investigation with the FBI, special prosecutors, putting people in their campaign as spies, tapping all their emails. You can't do that unless you have proof.
You're right. It's all going to go away. Everything's going to be fine.
Next subject.
All right. So there was a trans boxer.
Stop, fucking stop, because, hold on. Science Corner. Before we get to that, Lance has added to this painting.
Ah!
I'm not going to touch the painting.
Can we put some light on that?
Yeah, let's.
Well, you're not going to be able to. Oh, great.
I'll
That's
turn it
great.
back. I'll turn it back.
No, I have to turn the light. You can't turn the light.
All right. Sorry, I turned the light. But nuclear cooling tower, nuclear reactor, and some kind of smokestack deal. And I thought, just quickly I'd explain how nuclear reactors work, because it's really simple. Atoms, and also how atomic bombs work. Atoms consist of three particles: neutrons, protons, and electrons. Electrons and protons have opposite charges. They attract each other. An electron is attracted to a proton, but protons hate other protons, and they push against each other. Like charges repel. Two things with the same charge push each other apart. But
Protons lies matter? Protons lies matter?
Yeah. All right, so in the nucleus, you've got protons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons stick together even though you've got a bunch of protons in the nucleus that want to blow the nucleus apart. The attraction among the protons and the neutrons keeps nuclei from coming apart until you have too many protons in a nucleus, which is what's going on with uranium and plutonium. Uranium has 92 protons in a nucleus, and I don't know, like 140 some neutrons, which help keep everything stuck together.
Don't move.
Okay, but a uranium nucleus is badly stuck together. It's kind of boiling. It wants to be a ball, but there's too much repulsion, so that it's easy to tap that nucleus, especially if it's got. I think the especially breakable nuclei of you got U-235. Anyway, it's got like another couple neutrons, which actually make the ball even less stable. So the deal is, in atomic bombs and nuclear reactors, which run off of nuclear fission, which is when nuclei break apart. When they break, if you hit a nucleus with a neutron, it'll break that nucleus up. It'll make it unstable. It'll make that boiling ball come apart into two smaller balls and release more neutrons, and you get a chain reaction. So what you want to do, if you want to make an atomic bomb, is you put so much radioactive material together in a small place that all the nuclei are broken apart, and they release a shitload of neutrons that breaks up all the atoms, all the very breakable uranium nuclei get broken up, which releases a bunch of energy, and you get a huge nuclear explosion. In a nuclear reaction, you get in a nuclear reactor.
You said atomic explosion, not a nuclear reaction.
It's the same thing, atomic bomb.
Okay.
In this deal here, I'm not going to touch the painting. In this little house here, you've got a bunch of uranium rods, and you get them close enough together that when they decay, when they break apart, they cause a chain reaction that breaks other uranium nuclei or plutonium, depending on the type of reactor. You've got nuclei breaking up. The guts of atoms come apart. They release a bunch of particles. Those particles break other atoms. Every time an atom breaks, it releases energy, and things get hot. The rods are surrounded by water. The water boils and makes steam, and the steam powers electrical turbines. So all you're doing in an atomic bomb or a nuclear reactor is bringing enough radioactive stuff close enough to other radioactive stuff that they create a continuous breaking of nuclei and the release of energy, which heats up water that powers turbines. So it's a pretty simple deal. In an atomic bomb, you've got, sorry, you take 2 chunks of uranium or plutonium, and individually there's not enough, in each half, there's not enough, there aren't enough neutrons flying around to break up all the atoms that they all get set off so you have a bomb. But if you take regular explosives, like down the barrel of a gun, and you shoot one chunk of uranium into the other and they stick together, now you've got a critical mass, there's so many atoms breaking up now in this critical mass that it sets off all the atoms, or 90%, or I don't know what the fraction is, but they all go off at once in, you know, a millionth of a second, and then you get an explosion that can take out a city. So, okay, now.
How is it something so small, like, how big really is it, like a bomb?
You know, I
Payload,
think,
how big would the payload be?
I don't know, I used like 10 kilos worth of uranium, you know, 20 pounds, 22 pounds is enough to, a ball like this will, if you smash 2 halves of a ball together, you can have a 50, you know, well, a 20 kiloton bomb. A bomb that has the explosive energy of 20,000 tons of TNT.
How is that possible?
Because the forces that hold nuclei together are powerful, or the energy that's released when you break up a nucleus.
Was that something Einstein came up with? Or?
Well, he came up with E = mc squared, which is that when matter is turned into energy, you can turn matter into energy, and B, when you do, you get a buttload of energy. Because when a nuclear weapon when a fission weapon goes off, only 0.1% of the matter in that bomb is converted into energy. So, like, I think the engines on Star Trek run on antimatter reactors, which is kind of a thing. I mean, we don't have starships, but there is matter and antimatter. When you bring matter into contact with antimatter, 100% of it is turned into energy. But in an atomic bomb, only 1/1000th of it is turned into energy.
Have we ever brought matter in contact with antimatter?
Yeah, but you only with individual particles. You can bring an electron together with a positron, and they'll annihilate each other and turn into high-energy photons. But you know, you can't build like, you know, when I worked on a game show, I talked about an antimatter Bobby Brady, the youngest boy in the Brady Bunch, and the size of the explosion if you brought Bobby Brady together with his antimatter double. And that thing would destroy the Earth. If you took a 50-kilogram kid and ran him into his 50-kilogram antimatter counterpart.
Okay. Do we have another subject?
Yeah. Okay, so here, let me show you this dude who won his first professional boxing match.
You want to take a break or something?
I don't know. What do you think?
Let's just keep going. I've got the energy.
We have 37 minutes.
Look at this dude.
Right. We have 37 minutes? All right.
This guy here.
Yeah.
He just won his first professional boxing match.
Okay.
Toward the camera.
Show it to the camera.
I'll put it in the light, yeah. And the glare, bring you down to the perfect.
All right.
Okay, hold on a second. All right.
What do you think of this guy?
I'm very impressed.
All right. He's a savage boxer.
Okay.
He's a guy who should definitely be a dude, right?
Yeah, I mean, geez, I would let him date my sister.
Well, good. His name is Patricio. And I would guess that his name used to be Patricia because until 2012, he was a woman. Well, now you like to say that
Yes.
when somebody is born one sex and they want to be the other, they say that inside they don't feel that they're that gender and they want to change themselves into the other gender.
Yes.
That is a mental illness.
Yes.
Look at this guy. This guy was made to be a guy. This guy was born a woman. Yep. She boxed in the Olympics as a woman, but she felt that she was a guy.
Is there a female boxing team in the Olympics?
Yeah. And it took her 6 years to get permission to transition, and then to get permission from 2012 to 2018. It took that long for him to get licensed and to find an opponent and to be the guy that it's fairly obvious he should be. I mean, this guy, I mean...
Why does this appeal to you so much?
Well, I just think I don't agree with you when you say that anybody who feels that they were born the wrong gender is crazy.
Okay.
This guy knows what gender he was meant to be, and it's obvious he was right. This is a dude.
Okay. Look, my argument would be that because he was able to win a boxing match, doesn't mean he's not mentally ill. There are women out there that could probably beat men without changing gender. I don't think that cutting your winkle off for any reason speaks to good mental health.
No, he had one built, I assume.
I don't think having a winkle
maybe not, but like,
sewn onto you speaks of good mental health.
well, I just think that this guy, when he was a woman and she's going around saying, really, I feel I'm a guy. I feel like looking at this guy who just won, who's gonna, I would guess, is gonna go on to a pretty successful career, that this guy was not wrong when he said, I'm a dude, even though I was born a woman. And I think that's a possible thing. And that you can think that and not be crazy.
Well, it depends on what you think is crazy. I'll give you an example. In Germany, 70 years ago, they thought murdering Jews was a perfectly reasonable thing.
So wait, so you're going to say
in the South, 100 years ago, they thought owning slaves was perfectly reasonable. So it's possible to accept into your psyche a very bad, ridiculous, stupid idea. Now, is that mental illness? Not exactly. But I think that this poor person was given the impression that they were not adequate as a female, and that the best thing to do would be to have an operation. And clearly they've got a lot of issues because now they're beating people up in the ring.
Well, that's crazy. She was a great boxer as a woman.
Yeah, and
is a good boxer.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a lot of people that box are a little bit hostile. I'm going to say that. Now, the fact is that she was a woman. She was probably not. It probably wasn't necessary for her to learn to box.
If she wanted to box.
She wanted to hit people. So that's two things that raise my suspicions.
Hold on. You're saying that everybody who becomes a boxer it's because they're hostile.
No, the ones I met were hostile. Or there's two reasons to learn to be a boxer. The first is because you fear you're in a situation where you need to learn to defend yourself, which is a perfectly reasonable thing. The second is because you've got issues of anger.
Well,
you want to hit people.
No, what if you're good at it?
Just pure sportsmanship.
It's called the sweet science. It's like, it's not called the fuck people up science. It's called the sweet science because somebody was trying to present boxing as a thing that's based on skill.
If you came from a neighborhood where you had to learn to defend yourself, you were small, or it was a violent neighborhood, then I think you're perfectly normal learning to box. But most of the people I know that boxed were very violent people that wanted to hurt someone.
Well, what about this?
And I think that goes for this person here too.
I think that's
because everyone was leaving her alone. I mean, I don't know. Do women need to learn to box?
All right, this is crazy talk. So you take a bunch of kids.
Yes.
And you put them in a boxing. My dad wanted me to be less of a wuss, my stepdad, and he took me to a karate class, and I got my ass kicked, and I didn't like it, and I dropped out after one or two just one class. And I shouldn't have done that. I should have been like, fuck that, I'm going to get, but I did, because I was a little wuss.
Okay.
But you take a bunch of kids, and maybe you want to give them something constructive to do, maybe you want to make sure they can handle themselves. But say out of 20 kids, 1 or 2 of them are really good at it and really enjoy it.
Okay.
Maybe not because they want to fuck people up, but maybe because they've got the moves and they got the reflexes and the speed. I bet you there are more people who are who pursued boxing for at least a while because of skill rather than because they wanted to damage other people.
No, I don't believe that.
Well,
I don't believe that. As I say, if you're small, you need to learn to defend yourself. That's a good reason. But it's not the kind of thing, I don't think people get really good at boxing unless they have the desire to hurt people.
I don't think so. When you're
being left alone.
What age does Golden Gloves start?
I don't know. Hey, you know what? Our director boxed. Director, what is your opinion?
Well, I enjoyed it. I just thought it was fun.
Did you enjoy like messing up people's faces, or did you enjoy just like competing and winning?
No, I enjoyed the competition aspect of it.
Did you take it up because you needed to defend yourself in your life, in your world?
No, I actually took it up for Rick's reason. My dad took me there. It was like I didn't have a choice. I was a kid.
But I don't think this woman's dad took her there. I don't think it was that. I think that this person has issues. Because I think people would have left Patricia alone.
But I don't know if her name was Patricia, but now, I mean, this is a guy who's obviously at home with being a guy.
Yeah, you know what? There are people at home with having a stump. Have you heard about the people that remove legs?
Some people like to have their legs cut off because they're perverts.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to believe that this is a good thing. You're not going to. And you know, the weird thing about it is, I don't know why you don't understand that this is a sick thing.
All right, so
chopping off. You think chopping off your penis is a good thing? Let me ask you a question. If your daughter came home and said, Daddy, I need to have a penis attached to me, would you say perfectly reasonable? I understand you think you need to have a penis attached to you, and I'm all for it. You wouldn't feel the slightest bit that you had maybe made a mistake, that there was something wrong?
No, I wouldn't say perfectly reasonable. I would say, so what's the deal with this? Why do you, and we'd sit at, can we talk this over?
What if her reason didn't sound very convincing to you? What if she said, you know what, all the girls are doing it in my school, so now I want a penis too. I'm also going to get a tattoo.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just not a reasonable framing of it.
Well, but that's the problem, is that...
And you know what? My kid has at various times said, you know,
Wait a minute.
I want to get a tattoo.
Okay.
And Carol and I said, well, yeah, well, within reason, but why do you want a tattoo and what do you want to get? And
I was just joking about the tattoo. It was sort of an absurd joke.
Yeah, but we live in an era where people get all sorts of dumb tattoos.
Yeah, but I mean, we also live in an era when people have penises attached to them that are women.
Yeah,
and I think it's weird. I think it's absurd, and I think you do too.
Some people estimate there are 1.4 million trans people in America, which is not... It's not a small number of people.
Every one of them is nuts.
All right, so I'm not going to change your mind, but let's move on to the next topic.
Okay.
There was an Oscar host who was just...
okay. So, our director brings up Kevin Hart, who had a lifelong dream fulfilled when he was named the host of the Oscars. And then a day later he said, you know, maybe I better not, because years ago I tweeted some homophobic stuff, and I just don't want to deal with the spotlight on... And he withdrew based on some tweets he made, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Okay.
And our director asks, are you and I going to regret the stuff that we've said in this show? And I don't know, because we get going and we say all sorts of stupid shit.
No, I don't regret a damn thing. You know what? I regret that I don't say this more often. I don't want to live in a world where I have to say that people chopping their penis off are perfectly reasonable. I want to be able to say they're nuts. And I don't want anybody telling me that I can't say that, or I should feel wrong about it. And furthermore, my side has the moral high ground.
Why moral? Wait, hold on. Why moral high ground?
In all the issues. I'm glad that we fought Saddam. I'm glad I voted for Trump. I'm glad that I want to build a wall.